This box design is absolutely brilliant, but the reality is you're probably more interested as to what's actually inside the box, because, you know, you're not weird like me. This is the intro box for Steel Rift. It is a Mech Combat game by Death Ray Designs and Ash Barker. That last name there you're probably familiar with if you watch Guerrilla Miniatures games. He runs that, but he's also worked for Miniature Wargaming for a while, as well as he spent plenty of time over on the retail side of Games Workshop, and this is also not the first game he's designed. He's designed several others under several other publishers. Also, this particular game made my list of cool things in 2023, so that's why I'm talking about it. Inside the box, you're going to get yourself first a little art card here, then on the back has pictures of all the different weapon types. You've got the rule book itself. You've also got 6 3D printed miniatures, more on those in just a little bit. And then you've got your 6 laser cut acrylic bases for the miniatures, as well as something that's called an arc rotation guide, kind of slots into the front of the base to mark like 90-degree angle for the guys. And then you've got yourself a set of decals. The few things that are not in here that you're going to need is, one, it's a miniatures game, so you need a measuring tape. You'll also need a variety of dice for keeping track of damage, so D4s up to D12s, so you need more than just your usual D6s. And the one thing that would have been nice for them to include in the box is not in here, is just a set of cards for some default loadouts for your HEVs. This game has complete rules for constructing your own custom robots, but just for getting started, it would have been nice to have a few ready configurations that line up with kind of the 6 mechs or HEVs that come in the base set of the game. The miniatures for Steel Rift are all 3D printed, and they came out of what looks to be a run-of-the-mill resin printer. In fact, some of the weapon mounts here are still mounted on the pieces with the supports, though most of the mech pieces have their supports removed. But if you look carefully, you can see the little dots where supports would have been attached. But what you get here are things that really just need to be glued together for the most part, other than, as I mentioned, removing some supports from the weapons. But these things look really freaking cool. You get 6 miniatures in the starter set, each miniature being what the game calls an HEV. I'm going to pronounce them HEVs. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but it sounds good enough to me. And those are basically the storyline equivalent of battle mechs. So each of the miniatures has a pair of legs, a torso. You've got a host of arm options, and then the arms themselves have a number of mounting points for where you can stick little weapon pieces on to those arms. So these miniatures are very, very customizable. And while they are kind of broken down to light, medium, and heavy chassis, there's even a super heavy chassis if you buy some of the additional miniatures, and there are 2 factions in this box. For the most part, a lot of these pieces are fairly interchangeable with little or no modification to them. So you've got a lot of flexibility for how you want to create your HEVs and outfit them however you want. And why I think that is one of the most interesting selling features of this particular product line is when it comes to Battletech, which is obviously the dominant game in the Mech Combat space, their miniature line has always had a massive Atlas Daiichi style hole in it, in that they've sold tons of miniatures over the years, and they've been fantastic miniatures, but a huge aspect of Battletech, especially for some of the more hardcore serious players, is the ability to create your own custom battle mech. And there wasn't a really great, easy solution for that. Sure, you could kind of kit bash things together, but why would you do that when you got Steel Rift here? This kit is an awesome custom battle mech creating kit, even if maybe they really want you to play with their rules, obviously. But, you know, if you want a great way to make battle mechs that are custom designed, these miniatures are a great way to do that. So let's get a few assembled and see how they actually look next to the official Catalyst Games mechs, and just see if they're really interchangeable for that kind of a thing. And there you go. I've got a complete set of miniatures, and by a complete set, I mean I've assembled 2 of the 6, because, you know, I can count. But no, the quality of these miniatures is actually really, really good. I love how they look. If I were to put them up to some of the official Catalyst Games Labs Battletech miniatures, they would look plenty good on the battlefield. There might be a tiny bit more detail in the Battletech miniatures, like the cooling vents and things, but I'm getting pretty nitpicky. These are some very well designed, well sculpted miniatures and would be excellent for custom battle mechs. Now, the one thing I do want to note though is that it does feel like the Steel Rift miniatures are a tiny bit smaller in scale than the modern plastic Catalyst Games Labs miniatures. It's not much, so if you compare what is kind of like similar to similar, like this would be a quote heavy HEV versus a heavy battle mech, I think this guy's maybe about a couple millimeters shorter, which may or may not be a big issue for you. It's just kind of the style of how you like things to look. I just want to make a note of it so you're aware of it. But yeah, they would still fit in pretty well in a game of Battletech. And just a quick comment on that whole box cold open I did. When it comes to making your own tabletop miniature games, boxes are insanely expensive unless you're ordering thousands upon thousands of boxes. But what Death Ray Designs did here is that this cardboard box is a custom box, but it's a custom Death Ray Designs Steel Rift box. So you've got the logo printed here, and then you got 3 sides that all have just kind of generic Steel Rift related content on it. By the way, this game is made in the United States of America, in case that matters. But then the front and the back are labels. So what's happening then is they take a generic Steel Rift box and they slap on the proper front and back labels for whatever the product is, whether it's the starter set or whether it's one of the faction box sets or things like that. That is absolutely brilliant. Okay, let me talk a little bit about the story and then make some comments on the rule. The story is pretty simple, but it's a fun one. There's about 4 pages of fluff text in here, some pretty pictures. Basically what happens is humans build a Dyson swarm around the sun to get unlimited energy from solar collection. That messes with the sun's magnetic fields. Solar flares follow. Earth is screwed. Humans build giant robots to blow each other up. Guys, you can never have enough reasons for why you need to have giant robots in science fiction. Seriously, just a fun little story to play the game. All right, let's talk a little bit about the rules. Now, I want to make a disclaimer before I get too far into the rules. I haven't actually played the game yet, so this is not a review. I'm just making some very broad comments to give you some ideas as to what to expect. There are several actual playthroughs of this game by Ash Barker. If you're interested in Steel Rift, I would take a look at some of those videos. I'll put a link to one of them down in the description below. The rules of the game are fairly short. Let's see here. They're about from page 8 to page, the core rules go to about page 22, so maybe 14-ish pages. And that includes things like your force construction, scenarios, as well as the core rules of the game. And then there's a few extra pages explaining some of the kind of flair and unique aspects, some of the factions you can add into the game if you want to kind of add a little bit of variety to how the different factions play out. All in all, this game is probably kind of on par in terms of difficulty with, say, Battletech Alpha Strike, just the core rules. There's not a lot of extra stuff you get with Alpha Strike where you can potentially use tanks, helicopters, artillery, tornadoes, all that thing. It's basically like the core version of Battletech Alpha Strike, and it's a similar difficulty level to that. One just kind of general comment on how the rules are written for this game is if you're brand new to tabletop miniature wargaming, this may not be the best choice for you. It does appear to be a fairly simple game, but at the same time, there's kind of a style of writing rules where everything is not fully fleshed out in the rule book per se, with a lot of clean, clear examples like you get in some of the larger, more mass-produced miniatures games, for lack of a better phrase. They tend to kind of assume that you're already familiar with some of the basic concepts, and some of the more not super explained things you can figure out yourself. So for example, line of sight's in the game, and they do have a short little blurb here at the top of the page as to what it means, but it would be nice to see like some examples of it drawn out so you can visually better understand how line of sight's supposed to work in different circumstances. Just a little nitpicky thing, but it's kind of one style of how people write rules, that's all. And it's good to know that that is how this book is written. Well, that brings me to the end of this first look of Steel Rift by Death Ray Designs. As I mentioned a few times throughout this video, I'm mainly interested in the miniature line for purposes of custom battle mechs. I mean, some of these guys look absolutely awesome. This guy right here is really cool. I really want this one. But if you are in the market for a fairly simple, relatively easy playing miniatures game for giant robot combat, this one could be something to check out. And if you already have, say, Battletech miniatures or something else, you can go ahead and purchase just the rulebook for fairly cheap from Death Ray Designs website and give the game a try out for a very low intro cost. So thank you guys all for watching. I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. Hit that subscribe button, like button, and I've got more first looks as well as classic game commentaries on this channel. So be sure to check some of those out if you like these rambling, talking things. All right, I'll see you guys next time.